It's kind of interesting. You may have heard me share this story before about my mom. My mom battled cancer 4 times. And, we were blessed. When she was first diagnosed, we were told she had 5 years, and we got another 22 years out of that. We had 22 bonus years, and us kids felt very blessed by that. But a lot of those 22 years were surgeries, checkups, treatments, whether it's chemo or radiation. It was doctor appointments, going to get blood work, a blood draw. A lot of those 22 years was all of that. And I remember towards the end of Mom's life, right before she had her stroke and then died about a year after that, I just remember at one point Mom just said, you know what? A lot of people pray for a cure, but I know I'm healed. Jesus healed me. And here she was, a woman who was diagnosed with cancer yet again, a 4th time, and the odds were not looking good. And yet for Mom, even though she knew she's at the twilight of her life and her days were numbered, she knew she was healed. That's a powerful message to give her adult children, even one who's a pastor, that she had that kind of faith, the same kind of faith that Jairus had for his daughter that Jesus could heal, and the same kind of faith that this woman who was bleeding, that she had as she just touched Jesus' cloak. Mark's gospel is kind of interesting. Mark has this technique in his writings that he likes to sandwich things together. So we get the first part of our story, and it's the top bread of the sandwich, right? It's Jairus, seeing Jesus in this crowd, going to Jesus and, hey, Jesus, my daughter is ill. You can heal her, please come. And so as he begins to make his way, all of a sudden Jesus is interrupted by this woman who's hemorrhaging, and she's been bleeding for 12 years and nothing has worked. Having tried everything and having nothing benefit her and having spent lots of money and there's all these things that she tried that was just running against a dead-end road. And she knew if she touched Jesus, she would be healed. And so Mark inserts that as the meat of the sandwich. And then he comes back with, after she's healed, with Jairus' daughter who's sick. They think she's dead. And Jesus basically says, well, she's asleep, to mean that that's a temporary state. She won't be dead for long. And then he heals her and brings her back to life and says, Talitha cum, little girl, rise up. Whenever you have a sandwich, it's nice to build things in it, right? To make it better and taste better. And I think that's what Mark is trying to do with these couple of healing stories. And we can stand here and say, yep, Jesus is the healer. And there's a lot of truth to that. And I believe that with my whole heart. And like with Mom, we may not always be totally 100% cured, but we can be totally 100% healed, knowing who we are and whose we are in our relationship with God. And I tell you that story because you know what? Healings didn't take place just back in the day, in Jesus' day. They take place now, and it's a gift. And God's handiwork through Jesus Christ is continuing to bring healing even this day. Maybe in moments that we believe and moments that we don't believe. But, I think about Pam's brother and sister-in-law. Pam's sister-in-law needed a kidney transplant very bad. And, it was getting pretty serious for her to get one. And so Pam's brother donated a kidney to the kidney bank that was flown from Freighter in Milwaukee out to Colorado for a recipient. And the kidney in Colorado was flown to New Jersey for a recipient. And the kidney in New Jersey was flown back to Milwaukee, back to Freighter for Pam's sister-in-law, who received a perfect match kidney. And this was last week. And right away, after the kidney was attached, it started to produce urine. That's a miracle. That is a healing touch. equally as much as when Jesus was in this crowd as he got out of the boat and healed Jairus' daughter, equally as much healing as Jesus was touched by this woman when he wasn't anticipating it. Healing occurs all the time. And I love this story because a couple things. One is Jesus breaks boundaries. Jesus busts down barriers. Because twice Jesus did something that was religiously taboo. One, an unclean woman touched him who was bleeding, which would make Jesus unclean. But you know what happened? It wasn't that Jesus was unclean. He actually ended up healing this woman. So Jesus flips that around. And with this girl, it was taboo for, to touch a dead person or you'd be considered ritually unclean. But Jesus touches this little girl. And it's not that Jesus was unclean. This little girl came back to life. And so what that tells us is that Jesus has this healing touch, this power, not only for Jairus' daughter, not only for this woman who had years and years and years of bleeding, and not only for Pam's brother and sister-in-law last week who experienced this healing moment, to be made whole, to be given life, to be given another chance. You see, that is the gift and the power of Christ and his healing touch. What is broken can be made whole in our lives. What is sick and dis-ease can be made well and complete. We ask for Jesus' healing touch in our lives, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever we need to continue to bring us back into the family. Because do you notice when the woman who was bleeding, when Jesus said, who touched me? And she raised her hand, said it was I, and kind of fessed up and did some truth telling. Jesus called her daughter, brought her into the family. Somebody who was last and least got first. And Jairus, who had was well-positioned in society and wealthy, who was usually first, he got his for his daughter, but it was last again. Jesus continues to transform and reform the boundaries, and that healing transcends to all. May you experience healing this day in your life, in your family's life, and in this global village of ours.